Hey guys, good morning or good afternoon. Ashley Irie, and today we're going to talk about how I book weddings, go through the whole process. Now, I do want to say I'm not a full-time wedding photographer. I've definitely done enough to give you some good advice, but the truth is I don't book a lot of weddings. All the kids, hard to schedule that far out for me personally. I will say weddings, I think they're a lot of fun. I think that you really get to know your bride and groom. It's not like a show up and meet someone for an hour and then you're done, basically. So, weddings can be very personal and very rewarding, but they can also be very stressful. I know when I take pictures at a wedding, I immediately start thinking, like, I gotta get these backed up, which is like my number one piece of advice today. Back up your images. I've said it before. But a family shoot you could repeat, a senior shoot you could if you had to repeat, if something happened. A wedding, you're not gonna be able to. So back up your images, number one piece of advice, and let's start now from the beginning. So contracts. When I book a wedding, I would say the contract is more to get us on the same page. Now, yes, a contract is just kind of it, it really helps when I say keep you on the same page. You know what they're doing. They know what what their expectations are. So some things I included in my own personal contract was one, the price and what their deposit is. And I also, and take this as a lesson I learned the hard way, I would try to get paid the day of the wedding when I had first started. And that's a ridiculous thing to do. I did it, so shame on me, but I'm telling you, don't do that. So in that contract, I would put, okay, you're getting married January 1st. You need to have been paid, and I need to, not you, the bride or groom, but I need to have been paid in full 1 month, so December 1st, if I'm shooting a wedding that is occurring on January 1st. So, and that is because I literally sat at a wedding that was out of town and I was trying to get a check from the bride and groom. And again, that's a shame on me. And yes, they knew I was going to get paid that day. So it wasn't like it was a surprise to them, but you don't want to interrupt someone's reception and they're partying or maybe they're drinking. So you don't want to interrupt that. So that's the number one thing. It's your expectations on what you're getting paid. In that part of a contract, I would also put when you're going to start and stop. So you agree to a certain amount of hours, when you start, when you stop. And that way they can kind of decide, like when my dog just wandered in here, we took him out. He started crying the first time I tried to record this because he wasn't getting my attention. Okay. Anyway, so in that contract, it's also important to put how many hours, when you're going to start, when you're going to stop. Now I do, and it's because when I'm booking a wedding or when I booked a wedding, that whole day, I'm not planning anything else that day. I'm not planning to be anywhere. That whole day is for my bride and groom, even if they're booking me for just 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever they may have decided, whatever package, because I work in packages. So if you want me for 6 hours, I can guarantee, and that's another thing. I can guarantee so many images. That's something I have in that package. So you're setting your expectations so no one is let down with your time, your amount of images, so on and so forth. Now, I would want to know. I'd be like, well, how many images are you promising? And honestly, it's so important to me to catch not just the bride and groom and smiles and portraits and the wedding ceremony and the reception, but details. So it may be 4 or 5 shots that I can get creative with their rings and their flowers or the bride's dress. So the details are so important. So the way I work my personal packages and what I'm putting into that contract once they decide on a package is basically how many hours I'm going to be there, which will give me time to capture those details. And I typically, with my lowest package, promise 150-ish images, which has me there about 6 hours. I'm not doing like you're only getting 150. You can choose extra, which is my typical 150. You're not only getting 10 images. You can buy extra. That's not the way the package seems to work best for me personally. And I've always had happy brides and grooms with the way I do it. So if they up their package and they go to like package 2, and I might be a little off on my actual packages, but it's pretty in the right ballpark. I might go for 8 hours and promise 200 images. But if I'm there longer, I'm able to capture more. But, I'm not doing that big, I have a package 3 that's like 12 hours, 300 images plus. And I will say, when someone pays me for my biggest package, I'm not like 300 images, I'm done. I'm genuinely, because that's the way I work in my work ethic. If I get 400 pictures of different details, I'm not like, well, I'm gonna scrap 100 images because I promised them 300. I'm gonna make sure they get at least a little bit, if not more, of every single detail I captured. And it just is what it is, no matter how many images there is. So I also put in that contract part how long it's going to take for them to get their images back, because that's a question everybody asks me, no matter if it's a senior shoot or a wedding. How long till I get my images back? It's different for every photographer. You know how busy you are, so base that off of like what you think you'll have time for, so you're not rushing through images. If you want to know how long, I normally tell people a month and a half, but I'm fortunate enough that I've done this long enough and I do it full time. But if you're working a second job or maybe a first job and you're growing your photography career and you're not just doing it full time just yet, give yourself a comfortable amount of time. I don't think it's unreasonable to say 3 months. I think anything after that, people are going to be chomping at the bit, but do what works for you. Just lay that out there in the beginning so they know what to expect. Also in the contracts, and this is more for me, and sometimes they don't know when they're like first booking their wedding, but I like to include what colors, how many bridesmaids, wedding reception. So I'm gathering all that information, and again, it might change or adjust as we get closer, or maybe even, like I said, I devote that whole day to the bride and groom. But maybe they'll have said 10, but now they need you there at 9 and you can leave an hour earlier. I think it's important to be flexible because it's their day. And I feel like even though I've always worked with the coolest brides, I will say, and the grooms are, whatever the bride wants. But I think any added stress would be horrible for them. So I just tell them, like, I'm flexible. I can adjust. That is your day. So I also include that rough itinerary, and again, I do tell them at that initial meeting, I collect my deposit, we all agree to the terms. The deposit, I tell them it's non-refundable. Like, I'm booking this day for you 2 years in advance, 1 year in advance, even 6 months in advance. So if something changes, like, oh gosh, I hope not, but that deposit is not refundable. I wasn't able to book anyone or else or plan anything for myself, or I sacrificed whatever so-and-so had going on to be at your big day. So I do tell them, like, that deposit is non-refundable. It's normally not a question. They get that. You're not the only person telling them that. I mean, that would be the same for your videographer, probably your venue, so on and so forth. It's the whole point of a deposit. What else do I put in that contract that I'm just trying? So I collect all of that. I have that information. I do tell them at that initial sitting, like, hey, I'm flexible on this, but normally I'm going to start touching base with you probably about 2 weeks before your actual wedding, just to see if you, like, ask me anything in the meantime, or if you have any questions, ask me. Or if you come up, and I always tell them that because I want to open that gate of communication. Like, girl, when you get your dress, send me a picture. When you run across a shot you like on Pinterest or wherever you're looking, or the Not Wedding magazine, you're like, I love this picture, send it to me. Like, I'll kind of start a little log of information of all your likes and stuff like that. So those are the things I kind of start with at that initial meeting. And then another thing I like to know is obviously the venue where I'm going. But I like to decide if I'm going to have a second shooter. The reason I normally want a second shooter is if the boys are getting ready one place and the girls are getting ready in another totally different location. It's such a relief to me if the entire wedding I find out it's going to be in the same spot. Like, the boys are over here in this cabin, the girls are in this cabin, or whatever the setup is for the venue. But if it's not, I start telling them or trying to sell them on a second shooter. And just so I don't miss anything, like, this day is important, and typically they don't have any problem paying out a little extra for your second shooter, because they're really, at least for me, they're not paying that second shooter to edit any images. They just need to be there the day of to capture what you can, because you can't be in two places at once. So it's kind of like an hourly rate, I would say, and that would just be up to whoever your second shooter is, or whatever you work out with your, in my case, husband. Okay, so once we leave, I do some homework. Now, I don't do homework the day we leave 2 years in advance or 3 years in advance, 1 year in advance, whatever, 6 months. I am doing that homework probably about the time I'm gonna call them, that 2 weeks before their big day, or 1 week, whatever works for them. Because I may have some questions about the venue. Oh, okay, well, do you know if you can go from here to here? Will the reception area be open prior to the reception? Can I shoot in there? Little questions like that. I like to know if they're gonna have a videographer, because I think videographers and photographers can either do one of two things. They can step on each other's toes, or they can work together and get even more shots. And I've always worked 100% of the time, knock on wood, worked with amazing videographers that we are like, oh, hey, the bride's getting ready to put on her jewelry and I want to capture that, and they'll come get me, or vice versa. I'll be like, oh, hey, I'm taking them out to pop some champagne and get a fun shot. Do you want a shot of it? Whereas if you clash, you might be getting in front of each other's shots or things like that. So I like to call or establish who my videographer is going to be, and maybe reach out to them and just tell them, like, can't wait to work with you, so on and so forth. Okay, that's kind of what I do in advance. I also, when I talk to the bride, I ask, here's all the details I gathered at that first sit down. Your colors, has anything changed on who's going to be there? Oh, I get the names of, and I'm not expected to remember the groom's parents' name, the bride's parents' names, or all their family members' names, but I do grab those and try my best, because it's so much easier when you're trying to do stuff at a wedding if you know people's names. Not a must, but it's something that I've found to be important to me. I was going to say something else about that. I can't remember, but I'm sure it'll come to me. The day of, so a lot of sleep the night before. If you are a really professional photographer, you want to be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Another thing that I always do, because I learned the hard way, and this is my quick horror story, but I did a Catholic wedding for my first wedding. Did it for free, didn't get paid for it. So I was just there to grow my portfolio, and I was learning. And I am religious, but I'm not Catholic per se, and I would tell you that I feel like when you're photographing a Catholic ceremony, they can be a little more strict than if you're just having an officiant that got it online, or you know what I'm talking about. So my heart was there to get all the best shots and make sure I was doing wonderful. So I was over here, and then I moved back here, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything distracting. I was very conscious, both of that. But at the very end of the wedding, the priest came down to me, and he literally, and this still, like, it shook me. This was like 16 years ago, and I still am like, but the priest came down to me, and he was basically like, you were so distracting that I almost stopped the ceremony to comment on it. And I would have died. I would have never shot another wedding. I didn't even know what to say to him. I was like, I'm so sorry. But I took that as a learning experience. And so now, and so don't do as I say, please. I go and find every single wedding, no matter if it's Catholic wedding, if it's even a non-religious wedding, I go and find the officiant or the priest or the pastor or whoever, and I simply just say, hi, I'm Ashley. I am here to photograph this wedding today. I want to be really respectful of you and the congregation and the wedding. Is there anywhere you don't want me to be? Anything you don't want me to do? Is there any good ideas you have as far as and I worked with that same priest years later, and I don't think he remembered me. I know he didn't act like he did. I went up to him and I did that, and at the end he shook my hand. He was so nice to me. So I'm just saying, don't learn from my mistake. Don't make my mistake. So super embarrassing. Anyway, so when I get there the day of, And now I've talked to the bride. I know she doesn't want pictures before her makeup, or she wants pictures getting her makeup done. I know what her something new, something old, something borrowed, something blue, that whole thing. I know what all those things are. Those details are so important, and how you're going to get however many images you promise to your bride. So grab those details. I will also tell you that I truly feel like even when they have a wedding coordinator, the photographer is the one running the timeline. They're waiting on pictures. We run the timeline. Now, yes, the timeline is decided before you get there, but it can depend on how long you take, you gathering up people. So there a lot rides on your shoulder as the photographer. I can also tell you, and this may be different, and you may know different, but even when I work with a videographer, I do feel like, which I've established, like I said, that connection or that friendship with them, but I do feel like they are even coming and looking and like, do you know what's next? What are we doing next? What time are you starting the cake cutting? And so, it's not my show. I'm just trying to help it run smoothly. So again, maybe other photographers don't do that, but I put my heart into weddings. So all the details, like I said, before the wedding, another good thing to ask the bride, and weather may change this, but if they want to have pictures with the bridesmaids before the wedding to cut down time so they can get after the ceremony to their reception, I ask them, like, okay, but do you not want the groom to see you? Is that important to you? And then if they say yes and they want pictures with the bridesmaids outside, I take the time to go and say, don't come out of your dressing room, groom. I'm taking pictures with the bride. So all those things, if you coordinate that, I'm telling you, all the advice I'm giving you will set you above and beyond as a wedding photographer. I really feel like that's kind of the meat and potatoes of everything until after your wedding. So I mentioned to you guys, number one, when you get home, back up your images. Back up your images. Put them on an external hard drive, put them on your hard drive, or put them on your computer, put them where you need to. Again, I feel like everybody's so excited, and if you had to wait however long you tell them it's going to be to get images back, a month and a half, 3 months, it's going to be torture. So I try to the next day, if time will allow, or within the next week, or when I can, but as quickly as possible, get them a sneak from the wedding. Typically I'm like, can I post this to social media so everyone can see it? And I haven't ever had someone tell me no, but I would always double check. You never know. Some people are way more private. But I try to get them just in my head from the day. I really think that'll be a fun shot. That just seems fun to me to edit. So that's going to be their sneak peek. So just grab something you want and let that be their sneak peek. And then I do, even though I've told them a month and a half, I will probably at about a month reach out and be like, I just wanted you to know I'm loving your images, or whatever you feel, and I'm really excited to share them with you, and they're gonna get posted, I'm halfway through, or whatever you need to tell them. So communication is so important to clients, and it keeps them from being just this professional relationship to becoming more of a friend, and I think that's important as a photographer. Anyway, so that's kind of in a nutshell. I don't think I've missed anything. If I did, let me know, ask me. But yeah, I hope that helps. I hope if you're booking for weddings, you have a lot. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to also share my contract with you guys. It's a super old contract. It even has my old logo on there, but I'll email it to you if you want to, take out the logo or use it. I'm more than happy to let you do that, but you gotta let me know. Anyway, you guys have the best day. The next video, which is coming right after this one, is going to be on when I shot at Universal in Harry Potter Land, and that's the third one for this month, but it's more for fun. And yeah, I'm so thankful for you guys. Have the best day, and I will talk with you later.